What they tend to struggle with is the behind the scenes stuff, the execution, because what ends up happening in a lot of these companies is they run these campaigns, and at the end, the executives are asking, well, how did that go? And what were the results?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching today's video podcast. My guest today is none other than Bridget Jones, not Bridget Jones from the movie, who was this person who was trying to get her act together, but someone who always seems to have her act together and is a HubSpot star, and that's our Bridget Jones. And Bridget, I know from my experience, can figure out just about anything in marketing, but she focuses on HubSpot and HubSpot services. So many marketing teams develop brilliant strategies only to be held back by execution challenges, according to Bridget. And these gaps in processes, data, and technology can actually derail the best kind of campaigns. And as a marketing operations and HubSpot consultancy, Bridget Jones Consulting and Marketing ensures marketing runs efficiently and effectively. Did I get that right, Bridget?
You did. Yes. Thank you.
All right. So, Bridget, let's just jump into it. So, our audience today is going to be companies that probably need your services that maybe bought HubSpot in the past or have it now and don't feel like they've optimized it. So, what problem in the world did you see that made you decide that your company needed to exist?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, my main focus is really on helping companies with their marketing operations. And I primarily work with companies that use HubSpot to deliver their campaigns or execute their marketing. So, the operations and the HubSpot services kind of go hand in hand. What I noticed in working with B2B companies over the last 15 years is so many of them have very talented creative teams. They have very talented demand gen managers and directors, and their sales teams can get out there and close deals. They can run campaigns and build excitement and do all of that. What they tend to struggle with is the behind the scenes stuff, the execution, because what ends up happening in a lot of these companies is they run these campaigns, and at the end, the executives are asking, well, how did that go? And what were the results? And now we're scrambling to put together reports and processes and systems after we've already been up and running with the campaign. So that's where I come in from an operational perspective in making sure that their processes to execute on these campaigns and these sales processes are airtight. So they have all the frameworks and processes set up, that structure is set up behind the scenes so that everything can kind of run seamlessly. And at the end of the campaign or the end of the quarter, when the companies want to go and report on a result, they can do that and they can do so with clarity, with the data that they can trust. So, again, I like to say I help really talented marketing teams show and demonstrate the value that they bring for their companies by bringing in that process for them.
Great. So I like that word airtight. So when you go into these companies, Bridget, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close are they to being airtight?
I mean, they're bringing me in for a reason, right? They're usually at about a 2. It's on the company too. Like I've worked with smaller size companies, for example, $10 million company, they might just need some help getting some process in place. They don't have any process at all. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to build something from the ground up. But I also work with companies that are in the growth phase. Maybe they've hit 20 million or $25 million in 50 or 100, and they've really made a mess of things. Like they're doing all the things. They've brought in all the MarTech, they've got all the tools, they have the right people, but they don't know what's going on in their business. And they say, you don't trust the data. I don't know how many MQLs I'm delivering to sales. We don't know what's actually turning into revenue. I don't know how to use AI. So, like, typically, if they're calling somebody like myself, things are a pretty big mess.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I've been in these high growth companies, and when you're in a high growth company, you're happy that you're growing, but at the same time, you realize you've left the processes behind.
Exactly.
Things are growing so fast and the money is coming in. And
Yep.
then when things start to sort of level out and they want the same percentage growth they had in the past, the processes just aren't there.
Exactly. And you're moving and growing so quickly that you don't necessarily have time to stop and think about the process. You just put a band-aid over it and
Right.
move on to the next thing. But that what they're doing, and it's not intentional, but they're doing themselves a disservice in the long run by doing that.
And usually it's because they've never been at a larger company. And since they've never been at a larger company, they don't realize that that's coming.
Yep. Exactly.
It's like the poverty of your success.
Yep. 100%.
So, who is your company really built for, Bridget? And how does their life change when they use Bridget Jones marketing?
Yeah, so it's really the companies that are at that stage where they are stuck in the weeds. Like they've built process, but their processes are no longer working for them because they've become so big and so complex, and everybody's on the team is frustrated. They're spending more time trying to follow process than they are focusing on strategy and lifting up the campaigns. And they feel like they can't trust their data from that. So what I do is I come in and I can holistically look at everything that they have going on and help them simplify, cleaning up the noise, implementing best practices, getting their systems running more smoothly. Sometimes it's just getting back to basics too. Like, this is best practice. You'll get to do more innovative and forward thinking things if you have an easy process to follow. And it has to be easy for everybody. That includes the sales team too. A lot of times the sales team is confused as to what marketing exactly needs from them. So, yeah, to kind of sum that up, I help them come in, clean things up so they can move forward with clarity and confidence and do it at speed and at scale.
Well, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is that, you know, sales is for today, marketing is for tomorrow. And if we don't capture this information, then it makes it harder for marketing to do their tomorrow job so that in 2 years or 1 year, sales will have people to sell to. Is that how you see it too?
Yeah, what you're saying is kind of like, how do you balance what you need now with thinking about what's to come in the future, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Everybody's talking about AI now, right? But some companies aren't even at a point where they could begin to leverage AI because they don't have the basics in place today. And they're moving so quickly with, I have to get this thing done today. I can't even possibly think about what I'm doing next quarter, next month, or, even next week. So again, it comes back to having those basic frameworks in place, and maybe even having someone like myself that can do that and focus on that so that the demand gen and the go to market teams, they don't have to focus on that anymore. I've got one client who's a demand gen manager, but has also absorbed a lot of the marketing operations responsibilities prior to me coming on board. And I said to her, like, you can't be doing both. You shouldn't have to, because they're two completely different skill sets. And if you're not careful, it's very easy to get sucked into the marketing operations things, and not focusing on what you're supposed to be doing, which is driving revenue. So that's where having that marketing operations support person there to take those things off your plate, to, tackle the fires that are happening now to set
Mhm.
you up for success in the future, I think is crucial for any marketing team, at, businesses that are heading into the millions in revenue.
I feel like your logic sort of leverages what you and I learned about working with ServiceNow, which is that if you don't fix the workflow and the process, why are you adding the technology? You're just gonna make it worse.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no point in adding shiny new tools onto something until you have a plan for how you're going to use it.
Right, yeah. That's probably why people are having trouble articulating the value they're getting out of AI. They just rushed in with AI, throw it out there. MIT saying 95% of companies are failing with AI. A lot of opinions around whether that's a true number, but I've seen this movie before when we roll out these new technologies and there's a rush to get them out there and in operations, but there's no forethought. And the same thing is what you're saying about HubSpot. If you don't think about what you're doing, then you could just be bringing in a tool that just confuses everybody.
Right. Well, then, when that happens, if you don't have a plan for it, then when it comes time to add other features that you potentially need, and you're not utilizing the tool to its fullest extent with what you have today, you kind of end up eroding the trust in the platform. And that could be true for
Right.
Hubspot or any tool you're using. You're going to the executives asking for things, and they're saying, well, we don't even see the value of the platform we have now. So why should we think about adding these other tools or
Yeah.
capabilities onto it?
Wow. Uh, what a, what a wonderful way to say it. It just brings back memories of CRM.
Yeah.
So there are now. I know that you're an outstanding HubSpot implementer because you worked with some of my clients and they love you. But you're in a crowded market. There are other people that say they do HubSpot work. Why should people believe that you're the one that makes a total difference when you come into the company?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's not because they lack HubSpot expertise. Like a lot of times they know how to use the tool, they have somebody in-house or they have an outsourced resource helping them with HubSpot. The problem that I see is if they have an in-house resource, that resource is spread too thin, like the example I mentioned about, the demand gen managers or directors absorbing the marketing operations responsibilities, or maybe they have an outsourced partner that's just sort of like an order taker. I've noticed
Hmm.
that with a lot of other HubSpot providers and partners is they just do the thing that the client is asking them to do without thinking about how that's going to impact the broader picture. So, simple example, sure, if a client asks me, "Hey, can you implement this workflow that does XYZ?" Well, sure, I can do that, but if you do that, then it's going to have a downstream effect on XYZ, and it might impact your lead pipeline or other workflows are going to execute if you do this. So, the way I differentiate myself is I do take a more holistic approach. I go deeper, I look at their full lead pipeline, figure out where their gaps are, where things are breaking down, and then try to implement more simple, scalable solutions to those issues.
You're preaching to the choir on that one, being holistic. And I love what you said about the unintended consequences. If you haven't looked at it in a holistic manner, then things can pop up. You didn't step back to take a look at what was going on.
Exactly.
That's really important. So you have people that have HubSpot, they have the credentials, but they're sort of tactical in their thinking, and your thinking is more holistic and strategic.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That means they'll get more out of the system at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, being a HubSpot partner, HubSpot is an amazing tool, but I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but if you don't have somebody managing this technology and helping you leverage it to the fullest, you'll end up in this situation no matter what tool you're on, whether it's HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot, or even any other MarTech tool out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we've been around, we've all been there. Like you said, you've been doing this for 10 or 15 years. You've seen it a number of times. I've seen it a number of times. And having someone like you to sort of captain the ship makes a big difference. Hey, I know you probably hate talking about this, but I'm going to ask you, what's the biggest business mistake you made early on and how did it change how you do business today?
Yes, I actually didn't start my career doing HubSpot. I started my career as a marketing manager for a manufacturing company. Then I moved more into demand generation and events, into marketing operations, focusing specifically on HubSpot. When I started my own company 4 or 5 years ago, I tried to do all of those things. I was a little bit more of a generalist. Any business does that when they're starting out. They kind of throw a few darts and see what hits. I guess naturally over time, it seemed like most of the demand was more within the marketing operations space in the HubSpot
Hmm.
space. So that's sort of where I doubled down rather than diluting my focus and trying to be all things to these marketing departments. I focused on what I do best and what the market needs the most. So, and I think a lot of businesses are headed that way now, especially service businesses. You have to own a niche, you have to specialize. So,
Well, I love it. I love it the way you said what the market needs most. I think that's one thing that we should think about a little more. I come up with ideas all the time and every now and then I have a good one, but most of them are bad ideas because it seems like next level. but then the market isn't ready for it, or it's not burning platform.
Mhm.
It's not a sense of urgency, it's a nice to have, so you wanna stay away from those.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've always thought too, it doesn't always business doesn't always have to be a new idea. It just needs to be something that the market needs and that you can deliver on. If the idea is too new, then like you said, companies won't be able to grasp what it is you're trying to do. And don't need to reinvent the wheel, just find that one thing and double down on it.
Yeah, well, you're good at it, so it worked. So what's the one trend what's
For now, we'll see. I don't know what the market's gonna do in the next 10 years. I don't think anybody does, but
well, if you do, you should be trading options. No one knows. So what's one trend, technology, or shift in the world that excites you the most, Bridget, and one that people you think aren't paying enough attention to?
yeah, so that's actually a good segue about into this question from what we just mentioned on the topic of uncertainty. But these days, everybody's talking about AI, and I think I mentioned earlier, a lot of companies aren't ready for it. Like their processes are a mess, their data is a mess, garbage in, garbage out. If you try to layer AI on top and have it use that intelligence to help you move faster by extracting the data that you have in your system, you're just going to end up with a bigger mess. So I get excited about helping clients nail the basics, getting their systems more streamlined, cleaning up their data and stuff so that when the time comes for them to leverage AI, it can actually add value for them. And on top of that, platform consolidation is something that companies need to be thinking about. HubSpot is starting to become powerful enough to run entire go-to-market systems. They've added so many capabilities over this last several years. So for businesses, that means more alignment, a single source of truth, less fragmentation. And I don't know what HubSpot will add in the coming years, but there was a Gartner study out there that said this was from a couple years ago. So I'd be interested to see if the problems become better or worse. But their MarTech utilization has decreased to 33%. So companies aren't even using the technology that they have, yet they're continuing to add new tools onto their stack. So for me, I think for HubSpot clients, it's continually educating my clients on what HubSpot can do because oftentimes I'll see clients say, "Hey, we just bought this new tool and can you help us integrate it into HubSpot?" And I'm thinking, HubSpot already does that. Why did you just buy this tool? It's not better. Maybe it works a little bit differently, but like you didn't need to do that. And now we're trying to integrate the two tools. So,
Yeah.
anyway, to kind of sum that up, I think it's platform consolidation, getting your basics down, and then using other tools or using AI to enhance what you're doing, not as a strategy or a tool in and of itself.
Okay, I love this discussion because, over the last, well, couple of decades at least, I've probably marketed and sold 5, 6, 7 platforms. The argument that always pops up, whether it's the platforms I'm talking about or let's say it's Microsoft, is is it better to have a platform that does all these things, or is it better to integrate best in class? Do you have an opinion on this?
I think it's both, but I think before you integrate, you need to look to the platform and ask yourself if it can do the thing that you're looking to the integration to do. And
Right.
there's not one platform that can do everything. There are going to be instances where you need those supplemental platforms. But then again, those supplemental platforms can probably only accomplish 80 to 90% of what you're looking to do. So I think a lot of companies try to come up with the perfect system and the MarTech stack that's going to cover every single situation. But the reality is it doesn't. So, first look to your existing tech platforms to see if it can do that thing. If not, then think about integrating, but really consider if that integration is going to be worthwhile for you, or is it just going to be another platform that now you have to manage and integrate and keep updated and build processes around. Sometimes I wish companies would just not try to automate things and use AI. It's like Sometimes I think it would be easier. For example, I have some companies saying, can we use AI to route leads and determine if they're qualified and build all these workflows, do these all these things? And it's like, yes, we can, but how much time are you really saving? It might take, excuse me, it might take a human 2 seconds to determine if this is a qualified lead or not. And now building out all this automation to help you do that. And
Right.
of course, I'm not saying automation and AI are bad by any means. I wouldn't be in this business if I didn't think they could do wonderful, powerful things. But there also comes a point where you're over automating. So that's what I try to get clients to think in that way. Like, are you doing this just because it looks cool, or is it actually going to be adding business value for you?
Right. Like so many things in life, you want to strike a balance. I thought that was a diplomatic and insightful answer to that question. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, so what's the one thing about running your own company that surprised you the most?
Yeah. So for me, it's that big companies are very willing to work with small independent consultants. So I live in a somewhat rural area. I'm not in any major tech hub yet. I get the opportunity to work with multi-million dollar SaaS or technology companies. I've met a lot of really amazing people and people wanting to do good work and make a difference in their company. What was surprising is you don't need to be in a big city to build meaningful connections or a profitable business. The key to success is being trustworthy, likable, and being great at what you do. And if you have those things, there's space for you. And hopefully, that's an encouraging message for the younger generations too, starting out their careers and things like that. I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty today on where things are headed. And, of course, I don't have a crystal ball either, but I hope that gives young professionals some hope as far as their career aspirations.
We get out of it what we put into it. And I know you put everything into this and you've been committed to it. And like you said earlier, you said this is what I'm focused on. And I think you have to kind of tie that together. As long as you're focused on something and people know that, they will find you. So jumping into HubSpot, what's the most common HubSpot mistake you see that mid-market CEOs make that's actually costing them deals?
HubSpot obviously does a phenomenal job of marketing their platform. Sometimes companies will buy the tool before they have a plan for using it. They buy all of the capabilities at once and they get all the features, all the add ons, and they don't have a cohesive strategy for it. And then it becomes a mess. And then, as I mentioned earlier, then come the questions of, is this really adding value? Why did we buy this? Why should we invest more in it? And it's usually not the tool that's the problem. It's the people managing the tool. Not to say that people are bad or they don't know what they're doing, but a lot of times the strategy and the implementation becomes an afterthought and the tools end up working against them instead of for them. So, again, I think that's why training, adoption, having a plan, those things are all crucial for success with the platforms.
It goes back to what you were saying before, sort of slow down before you speed up,
Yeah.
bring it in, see what you really want to be doing strategically with it. Don't bite off more than you can chew in the beginning. Roll it out, get people comfortable with it, and then have more of a holistic strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone like me, if you have myself or a different partner, a good partner is always going to be thinking, down the road, how are we going to do this? So even if you're starting small, that partner that you have working with you is going to be thinking behind the scenes, how can we build this today so it's scalable in the future?
So most people think HubSpot consulting is about setting up workflows and dashboards. I think you've already touched on this a little bit about having more strategic, holistic view. What's the real business problem you're actually solving for these CEOs?
I mean, really, it's a window into the health of your entire pipeline. So, from the time you capture leads all the way through customer retention. And as I've mentioned over the years, HubSpot continues to add customer service hub, operations hub, all the things that businesses would need to run their go-to-market programs. It's no longer just a content management or an inbound tool. They don't even call it inbound now. It's called loop marketing because they're really focused on the entire demand gen and customer life cycle. So I help CEOs use the tool to gain insights into their revenue growth so that they can make smarter decisions down the road.
What's your approach when a CEO I'm sorry, it's just we've all been there. What's your approach when a CEO wants HubSpot optimization, but their sales team is resistant to change?
I don't know, I've never experienced that before. It's almost always the case. I tell them to start small. And again, kind of going back to the question about mistakes made when purchasing HubSpot is like, or again, any tool, start small. These platforms will always take more of your money later on if you want to add things. So starting small, not overcomplicating things, making sure you're over communicating. I found too that sales teams usually resist because processes get too complex or they try to solve for every possible scenario. Often, a sales team will want a new lead management process in place, and we try to keep it simple from the get go. And they say, well, sometimes things happen where it doesn't go exactly this way and XYZ happens. And I say, well, okay, does that happening 80% of the time, or is that more of an edge case? Because we need to solve for the 80%. We can always create exceptions for those things that only happen some of the time. But if we try to automate everything, it's just going to become way too complicated. The sales team and marketing team won't understand it, and the process isn't going to get followed. So start simple. They can always add on more sophistication later if they find that they need it, but trying to do that from the get go doesn't typically work as well.
It's interesting because I think what you're saying is there's some change management involved in this.
Hmm.
Like you have to respect organizational change management in order to get the adoption that you want, in order to get the results that you were looking for.
Right. Exactly. And it has to be like an ongoing process. Typically, it's not one training or one communication. It's over a series of times, giving the teams little things to bite off and then expand from there. If you try to give them too much or expose them to too much of the tool or the process at once, that's where things get confusing.
Have you ever in a larger company, Bridget, have you ever had the need for a steering committee?
In terms of HubSpot or marketing operations, no, honestly, that's not something I've seen done often. We've tried it with a few clients of mine, and it's had mediocre success. I think it's valuable.
Okay.
I think there needs to be more buy-in for something like that, and there needs to be somebody championing something like that. I've found in this one particular client, now that I'm thinking back, who did try to do something like that, is there were a lot of opinions and people wanting certain things. And it came down to we had issues with alignment and priorities from this steering
Right.
committee. And that's where it kind of fell short a little bit.
Yeah. We'll come back to the other question, but I just wanted to talk about this a little bit to see how you respond. In a big company, if you do OCM, you usually have someone on the inside that is reporting to a C-level person that has their authority, and that person is driving it internally.
Yeah.
Then that person owns the project, like someone would own CRM, someone will own HubSpot, and then that person has all the authority to build a steering committee, to get ambassadors, to get the training up and running and all this other stuff. But you're not running into that the size of companies you're talking to.
Not so much, unfortunately.
Okay. That's where I got off base. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think they should. I think it would be valuable, but not all companies do right now.
Yeah, it might be interesting to offer a small version of that
Mhm.
and then put yourself up as the fractional
Yeah.
champion internally, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That might be something for you to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to your final thoughts.
Mhm.
If someone only remembers one thing from this conversation, what do you hope it is?
So I think it's really three things that I'll sum up into three sentences, right? So it's outcomes and process first. You don't need to be distracted by every shiny new MarTech tool. And if you do want to start implementing more AI, which probably every company does, it's not really a strategy. It's an enhancement to the strategy that you have. So the companies that win are going to be the ones with a clear strategy, clean systems, and processes that actually drive results.
Okay. So I have one more question for you, uh, Bridget, which is a company is a company is looking at HubSpot. They haven't purchased it yet. What are the symptoms that they're experiencing where you would say you need something like HubSpot?
Yeah, I mean, if they're managing a lot of their marketing outside of a tool and they have a email marketing tool and they have social platforms, but they may not have one thing that's going to bring all of those workflows together.
Hmm.
It's a similar problem to ServiceNow or any other tools. They're probably using spreadsheets to track reporting. They don't have real-time numbers. There's no visibility or there's no one single source of truth that they can go to understand what are we doing with our marketing? How are we managing it? And what are the outputs? If they're not able to answer those questions, or if the answers to those questions are across like multiple platforms, or even they're trying to use Google Drive or something like that to manage everything, I think that's when it is time to consider a platform like HubSpot.
Okay. So what I heard there was I don't have a single source of truth.
Hmm.
So I really don't have a single source of truth about my go to market.
Right.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I do, okay, different scenario. I do have HubSpot, but I'm disappointed. What are the symptoms that I'm seeing?
No process around how you're going to use the tool,
Hmm.
no data structure. So what data are you collecting at various points in the life cycle and what are you doing with it? And are you actually using all of the tools that you've purchased? Most companies are using email marketing, but are you using the intelligence features that are available? Does the sales team understand what's going on in HubSpot and how you're using it? Even if you're on Salesforce, the sales team still needs to be plugged into the top of the funnel and what's happening there so that they're able to action the leads that come their way, whether they're managing them in HubSpot or whether they're getting passed over to Salesforce. So at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to process and training and adoption.
Okay. So one thing I always said about platforms, so many, many years ago, I still say it today, because I think it's a universal truth, is when you buy software, there's the cost and then there's the cost. So we have the cost, which is I subscribed to it or I purchased it. What would you consider to be the cost that I need to understand is part of that investment, is part of that commitment?
I mean, honestly, somebody to run the tool and make sure it's being leveraged appropriately, whether that's someone on your team that's going to take up that responsibility or an outsourced person or several people. Like the tool in and of itself isn't going to generate leads and revenue for you. It needs to be ran by the team and ran appropriately. So if you don't have somebody in place to do that, then yeah, maybe it's not going to, you're not going to have that secondary cost that you mentioned because no one's running it. But then again, no one's running it and you're wasting all of that money that you spent on the platform itself.
Right. So is that person you, or is that person someone inside the company that follows your guide?
It depends, honestly. When I go into clients, obviously they have different team structures set up. The way I structure my services is if they want to completely offload their marketing operations and HubSpot to myself, that is a service that I offer, again, depending on budgets for teams and how much capacity their internal teams have. Sometimes that's me coming in and advising them and then that person championing the tool and executing on the best practices that I've given them. So I guess yeah, just to answer your question, it really depends, but in order to be successful with a marketing automation platform, you do need somebody in there running that, whether that's, an outsourced partner like myself or appointing somebody internally to do that. And a
Is there
lot of
anything else?
teams don't have the resources to handle it in-house, at least not today.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say to finish off your thoughts here?
Yeah, going back to having a strong marketing operations backbone is what is going to enable marketing and sales teams to be successful. It's not going to be the software, it's not going to be AI, it's going to be what you do with those capabilities that will help companies stand out from others.
Well, Bridget, one thing I like to tell everybody when I see it is thank you for your leadership. And we tend to focus on people at the very, very top of organizations, but really in organizations, we see leadership everywhere. And I know in working with you before and you helping my clients, you brought that kind of leadership. So I just want to say thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.